8 signs you have an incredibly rare personality. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." In this video from Spiritual Wisdom, we're going to uncover 8 signs that you have an incredibly rare personality, one that few can understand, but many are drawn to. If you've ever felt different, deeply intuitive, or emotionally ahead of your time, this message is for you. These insights will help you understand your unique spiritual design and how to use it for personal growth and lasting happiness. So as you listen, reflect on which signs resonate with your journey and share in the comments which one describes you best. Are you ready to discover how rare your spirit truly is? 1. Emotional depth. You experience emotions with a rare kind of sophistication that most people will never understand. It's not volatility or moodiness. It's an elevated form of awareness that allows you to feel the world in layers of meaning others cannot perceive. You sense the subtle shifts in energy, the quiet concerns hidden behind someone's smile, the tension in the air when something unspoken lingers. You read between the lines of silence. You know that emotions are not chaos. They are codes, signals from the soul that reveal truth when words fail. This emotional richness gives you a form of inner intelligence that is both a blessing and a burden. You walk into a room and instantly sense what others are feeling, long before they speak. When someone's words don't match their energy, you notice. When someone hides behind confidence, you can feel the trembling underneath. Your sensitivity acts like a mirror, reflecting the emotional world around you with clarity and depth. And yet, because you understand emotion so deeply, you also carry it deeply. Pain doesn't just touch you, it echoes. Joy doesn't just make you smile, it transforms your entire state of being. Such sensitivity is not a weakness, it's spiritual maturity. You've learned that emotions are sacred messengers, guiding you towards self-understanding and awakening. While others dismiss their feelings as inconvenient or illogical, you listen to them. You understand that anger is often an unexpressed truth, that sadness is unhealed love, and that peace is what arises when you stop fighting what your soul already knows. This awareness is what separates you from the ordinary. It is the mark of someone undergoing true spiritual awakening, someone who no longer seeks to control emotions, but to understand their divine language. Because of this depth, you crave authenticity. Shallow interactions drain you. Pretending exhausts you. You find meaning in presence, silence, and honesty. The world often tries to teach men to suppress their emotions, to act detached and unaffected. But your strength lies in your ability to feel and stay grounded in it. You don't run from your emotions. You observe them, learn from them, and let them expand your consciousness. You've discovered that emotional intelligence isn't about being calm all the time. It's about being real, aware, and spiritually aligned. Your emotional depth connects you with the unseen rhythms of life. You understand that everything, every joy, every ache, every hesitation carries spiritual information. You can feel when energy is off, when someone's spirit is wounded, when something is about to shift. You don't need validation for what you sense because you trust your intuition more than appearances. This is the wisdom Carl Jung pointed to, the understanding that what we feel is the language of the unconscious, the bridge between the mind and the soul. Through this step, you become a healer, not by fixing others, but by being fully present with them. Your empathy is a form of light. You remind people that being human is not about perfection, but about awareness. You move through life like a silent listener of truth, knowing that emotions are not obstacles, but portals to transformation. And as you continue to evolve, your emotional sophistication becomes your greatest power proof that spirituality is not found in escaping emotions, but in embracing them with compassion, presence, and awakened understanding. 2. Sacred curiosity. You constantly question reality because something deep within you knows that truth doesn't live on the surface. This sacred curiosity is not a flaw. It is a divine gift. It is what sets you apart from those who simply accept what they are told. While others settle for easy answers, you are compelled to look beyond appearances, to explore what is hidden, to understand what cannot be seen. This kind of curiosity is the heartbeat of spiritual growth, the silent force that pushes humanity forward. It's the same flame that burned in the hearts of great thinkers and mystics, the ones who refused to stop at the visible world because they felt that life itself was a vast mystery waiting to be unveiled. You are not satisfied with the ordinary or the obvious because your soul remembers that everything seen has an unseen cause. There's a light in your mind that others may not understand. They might say you overthink, that you're too intense. But deep down, you know your curiosity is sacred. It's not about collecting facts. It's about awakening your consciousness. You don't just want to know what something is. You want to know why it is, how it connects, and what truth it reveals about the soul. This search leads you to question not only the world around you, but also your own inner landscape, your thoughts, fears, and hidden motives. In that process, you transform. You start realizing that questioning is not rebellion. It's the highest form of awareness. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." You embody that truth each time you refuse to take things at face value and instead turn inward to seek understanding. Every question you ask pulls you closer to spiritual wisdom. You see patterns where others see coincidence, meaning where others see chaos. You sense that everything in existence is connected by invisible threads, and your curiosity becomes the bridge that ties those threads together. Even in moments of uncertainty, when life offers no clear answer, your spirit does not collapse into fear. Instead, you sit in the mystery, knowing that patience is a form of faith. You understand that unanswered questions are not punishments, but invitations to deepen your trust in the unseen order of life. That is the mark of someone spiritually awake. You no longer chase control. You cultivate awareness. You know that each question is an initiation, a portal that expands your consciousness beyond limitation. Through this sacred curiosity, you are constantly evolving. You allow yourself to be both student and seeker. You are not driven by pride, but by a deep reverence for truth. You sense that the universe speaks in whispers, in symbols, coincidences, and inner knowing, and your open mind becomes the antenna that receives its messages. While the world moves fast, obsessed with outcomes, you take your time to understand the essence. You don't need to be certain to feel secure. You find peace in the process of discovery. And because of that, your presence inspires others to question too, to think, to feel, to awaken. Your curiosity is your soul's compass, leading you through the unknown and back to yourself. It keeps your spirit alive, your heart open, and your mind expanding. It is not confusion. It is divine intelligence flowing through you, reminding you that life is not meant to be understood all at once, but lived as a continuous revelation. Through every question you ask, you become the embodiment of spirituality itself, awake, alive, and endlessly growing. 3. Conscious independence. Conscious independence is not something that can be taught. It's something you earn through solitude, pain, and the courage to face yourself when the world goes silent. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that truth echoes through your journey of spiritual wisdom. You've learned to stand alone, not because you despise connection, but because you've realized that your strength is born in the quiet spaces where no one else can walk for you. Through hardship, you've built an inner identity so unshakable that external approval no longer defines you. You understand that real freedom is not the absence of others, it's the presence of self. You've tasted loneliness, but instead of letting it break you, you've allowed it to refine you, transforming solitude into a sacred teacher. In that stillness, you've met your true self, and you've learned that peace is not something you find, it's something you become. This is the essence of Jung's concept of individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating every part of your being, the light, the shadow, and everything in between. You no longer chase validation or cling to roles that make you feel safe. Instead, you live from the inside out, guided by an invisible compass that always points toward authenticity. You can walk away from what no longer resonates, not out of bitterness, but because your soul knows that alignment is more valuable than attachment. You've discovered that being independent does not mean isolation. It means sovereignty over your emotions, thoughts, and energy. It's the kind of quiet strength that doesn't need to prove itself, the kind that moves through life with grace because it has already conquered chaos within. People with this rare form of independence radiate a calm presence that speaks louder than words. You've become the observer of life rather than its prisoner. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer seek attention, you embody purpose. There's a profound clarity in your energy that others can feel, but may never fully understand. You've realized that solitude is not emptiness. It's the space where intuition whispers and divine insight awakens. You can be among people, yet remain untouched by their noise, because your inner silence has become your greatest sanctuary. This is not arrogance, it's self-awareness. It's knowing that your worth is not dependent on how the world sees you, but on how deeply you see yourself. Through this journey, you've learned to value boundaries as sacred expressions of self-respect. You can love deeply without losing yourself and connect without clinging. You no longer fear rejection because you've already accepted yourself. You've faced your darkness, and instead of hiding it, you've learned to transform it into light. As Jung taught, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. That is the very heart of conscious independence, embracing every part of who you are, without shame, without apology. And in doing so, you've become something rare, a soul who doesn't just live in the world, but moves through it with awareness, balance, and truth. 4. Hyperactive perception. You have a mind that perceives beyond the surface, and a heart that feels everything deeply. This heightened intuition, this almost supernatural awareness, allows you to read emotions, sense tension, and detect unspoken truths in ways that others cannot. You notice subtle energetic shifts that reveal the unseen motives behind people's words and actions. This isn't imagination. It's energetic intelligence, the mark of someone going through spiritual awakening. As Carl Jung once said, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. You are awakening to the deeper layers of existence, but with such depth comes the weight of carrying energies that do not belong to you. You may find yourself entering a room and instantly absorbing the emotions of others, feeling sadness that isn't yours or tension that lingers without reason. You may wake up exhausted, not because of your own struggles, but because your energetic field has been overstimulated by the world around you. This hyperactive perception makes you a natural empath, capable of seeing life with profound clarity and compassion. Yet without boundaries, this same sensitivity can lead to emotional burnout, anxiety, or even spiritual fatigue. You are like an antenna that receives every frequency. If you do not learn to tune it consciously, you will drown in noise that was never meant for you. The secret lies in balance. Spirituality teaches that awareness without grounding becomes chaos, while grounding without awareness leads to numbness. You must learn to flow between both states to feel deeply without losing yourself, to understand others without carrying their pain. This requires conscious practice, solitude, meditation, journaling, time in nature, and deliberate moments of silence that allow your energy to reset. Your heightened awareness is not meant to overwhelm you, but to refine you, to transform raw emotion into spiritual wisdom. It is through grounding your empathy that you learn to see without absorbing, to care without collapsing. Carl Jung believed that the more light one carries, the more shadow one encounters, both within and around. As your consciousness expands, you notice darkness in others, not to judge them, but to recognize it as a reflection of the collective human condition. This awareness gives you insight, but it also tests your strength. The awakened man must walk with discernment, knowing when to engage and when to retreat, when to offer compassion and when to protect his peace. When you understand that not every emotion you feel is yours, you begin to reclaim your energy and step into your power. Your rare sensitivity is a sacred responsibility. It allows you to see truth in disguise, to sense what others overlook, to heal through presence rather than words. But to truly embody it, you must practice energetic sovereignty, guarding your peace as fiercely as you guard your purpose. When you do, your perception becomes not a burden, but a gift, guiding you toward emotional clarity and spiritual awakening. You stop reacting to the world's chaos and begin influencing it with calm authority. You become a man who feels everything yet is mastered by nothing. A man whose inner stillness becomes the most powerful presence in any room. 5. Desire for meaning. You can't pretend to care about things that don't move your soul. Shallow ambitions, empty achievements, and surface-level connections drain you because your psyche craves true purpose and alignment. It's not that you're too sensitive or too demanding. It's that your spirit refuses to live on borrowed meaning. While others may find comfort in routine success or social validation, you feel restless in their world of repetition. something within you keeps whispering that there must be more truth, more depth, more life. This inner tension is not your weakness, it's your awakening. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And you can feel that truth burning in your chest. You cannot silence it with distractions or drown it in comfort. You were born to seek something real, and until you do, nothing else feels right. You find yourself drawn to conversations that go beyond the surface, to people who make you think, and to experiences that stir your heart. You are not interested in gossip or triviality because your mind is always searching for connection and clarity. You want to understand why things happen, what they mean, and what they reveal about the human spirit. And yet, this search often sets you apart. The world values speed and image, while your soul values depth and honesty. You might feel alone at times, misunderstood for wanting something deeper than comfort. But solitude becomes sacred when you realize that silence is the soil of transformation. It's in that silence that your spirituality ripens, and your understanding of life expands beyond logic or control. You begin to see meaning in patterns, synchronicities, and even in pain. You recognize that every loss, every heartbreak, every challenge is a mirror reflecting your own evolution. You start to notice how much of life is built on illusions, people chasing status, money, or approval while feeling empty inside. And you can't play that game anymore. You want to live with integrity, even if it costs you familiarity. You'd rather walk alone on a path of truth than be surrounded by people who pretend. Your rare personality compels you to ask difficult questions about purpose and identity. You feel things deeply, but instead of being consumed by emotion, you learn to transmute it into wisdom. You discover that real spirituality isn't about escaping the world. It's about awakening within it. It's about seeing the divine in the ordinary and allowing awareness to guide every decision you make. This kind of spiritual growth changes how you love, how you work, and how you see others. You stop reacting to life and start responding from a higher place. You begin to sense that every person carries a story. Every event carries a message, and every moment carries potential for expansion. You develop compassion, not the soft kind that avoids truth, but the strong kind that understands it. You realize that your desire for meaning is your soul's rebellion against a meaningless world. And that rebellion is holy. It's what separates those who merely exist from those who truly live. You are not here to blend in. You are here to bring light into a world that has forgotten how to see. So you keep walking, seeking, questioning, and growing, because the journey toward meaning is not something you choose. It's who you are. 6. Transcending people and environments. You evolve at a pace that few can follow. It's not that you intend to outgrow people or places. It simply happens as your consciousness expands and your spirit deepens. You feel yourself transcending relationships, conversations, and environments that once brought comfort, but now feel too narrow for the vastness you're becoming. Carl Jung called this process death and rebirth, a necessary transformation in which the old self must dissolve for the new self to emerge. It is not an act of pride, but of alignment, a quiet recognition that your soul is no longer nourished by what once sustained you. You begin to sense that staying in the same energy would mean betraying your own growth. And so, with both courage and sorrow, you allow life to carry you forward. This transcendence is rarely easy. You may feel misunderstood, as though the language you once shared with others no longer fits the vocabulary of your soul. Conversations that once felt alive now echo with emptiness, and familiar spaces lose their warmth. Yet within this shedding lies sacred renewal. Like a tree, releasing its leaves to make way for new growth, you let go of what no longer vibrates at your frequency. In the silence that follows, you begin to hear your true voice stronger, wiser, more compassionate. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And this becoming requires walking away from the versions of yourself that were built to please the world instead of honoring your spirit. You start craving solitude, not as isolation, but as communion with your inner being. The noise of the world fades, and in that quiet, you begin to perceive truth more clearly. You no longer chase acceptance, because you've learned that external validation is a poor substitute for inner peace. Detachment becomes an act of love, not rejection. You can care deeply for people and still choose to release them when the connection begins to dim your light. This is not indifference, it's wisdom. Spiritual wisdom teaches that to cling is to suffer, and to let go with grace is to trust the divine rhythm of transformation. Each time you transcend an environment or relationship that no longer resonates, you experience a subtle liberation. The air feels lighter, your intuition sharper, your vision clearer. You begin to see how everything that departs makes space for what is meant to enter. The right people start appearing not because you searched harder, but because your energy now calls them in effortlessly. You realize that life is not about accumulation, but alignment, not about holding on, but about allowing flow. Jung's insight still echoes through this truth. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Transcendence is the moment you stop calling it fate and start calling it freedom the moment you no longer seek to fit into the world, because you have learned to belong entirely to yourself. 7. Transformative presence. Your presence has a certain power that words can't describe. It changes the atmosphere, calms the chaos, and makes people feel safe without you even trying. When you walk into a room, people feel seen, understood, and somehow lighter, as if your energy gives them permission to breathe again. This is the quiet influence of a spiritually awakened soul. As Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." When you embody that truth, your presence alone becomes a mirror that reflects light back into others. Yet behind this gift lies a deep lesson that many with rare personalities must face: the helper's burden. You are naturally drawn to heal, to comfort, to guide. But the same compassion that elevates others can also exhaust you if it's not balanced with discernment. People often come to you not because of what you say, but because of how you make them feel. They sense your empathy and mistake it for an open door to their pain. Without realizing it, you begin to carry their emotional weight, believing that love means always being available, always giving. But this is where spiritual wisdom must intervene. True spirituality doesn't ask you to lose yourself in service. It asks you to stay aware, to know the line between compassion and depletion. When you overgive, your light dims. You start to confuse exhaustion with purpose. forgetting that the divine never intended for you to heal others at the cost of your own energy. Spiritual awakening teaches that discernment is an act of love, not separation. Protecting your energy doesn't make you selfish. It makes you sustainable. The awakened soul learns that saying no at the right time is a sacred form of yes to your own growth. When you allow everyone access to your inner peace, you begin to lose the depth that made your presence healing in the first place. Remember, your role is not to save others from their darkness, but to show them that they can walk through it. Sometimes, the most powerful healing you offer is silence, the space that allows another person to discover their own strength. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Your energy is not meant to absorb others. It is meant to catalyze transformation. That means learning when to engage and when to release, when to guide and when to simply be. You are not a vessel for everyone's pain. You are a mirror of possibility. And the more you honor your boundaries, the more magnetic your presence becomes. The truth is, your light shines brightest when it is not consumed by the shadows of others. This is the secret of the transformative presence, the balance between giving and grounding, between empathy and wisdom. It is the quiet strength of one who has learned that true spirituality is not about carrying the world, but illuminating it, one conscious choice at a time. When you master this balance, you no longer heal by effort, but by existence. That is the essence of a soul fully awakened. 8. Sense of higher purpose. You feel a deep and unshakable calling beyond the ordinary, one that doesn't seek attention or recognition, but quietly urges you to live in harmony with your true nature. This inner voice is not driven by ambition, but by aligning a profound need to contribute to the evolution of human consciousness and to become a vessel through which higher awareness can flow. Those who carry this rare sense of purpose often find themselves walking paths few dare to take, guided not by logic, but by intuition, not by fear, but by faith. You sense that life is more than survival or success. It's a sacred process of remembering who you are beneath the noise of the world. As Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. This isn't just a quote for you. It's a truth that lives in your bones, one that shapes the way you think, feel, and move through existence. When you live with this inner calling, ordinary goals lose their meaning. The things society values, wealth, praise, or reputation, seem pale compared to the fulfillment of living authentically. You're not trying to be better than others. You're trying to be truer to yourself. There's a quiet fire in you, a longing to express something pure and timeless that lies beyond words. You notice the hidden threads connecting events, the patterns that guide human destiny, and the silent lessons within suffering. You sense that your purpose is not to escape life's darkness, but to bring light into it, to transform pain into wisdom and isolation into understanding. This is where spirituality begins. When you realize that every challenge is an invitation to grow, every silence is a teacher, and every soul you meet mirrors a part of yourself. Those who carry a higher purpose often feel misunderstood because their motivations are invisible to the ordinary mind. You might be called too sensitive, too idealistic, or too detached. But beneath those labels is someone who feels the pulse of the world deeply. You are tuned into the collective heart of humanity, sensing its wounds and its potential. Spiritual growth requires this sensitivity. It's what allows you to see beyond appearances and touch the truth that lies underneath. Your compassion grows, your reactions soften, and your choices become guided by something larger than your personal desires. You begin to understand that true purpose isn't about achievement, but alignment with truth, with love, with the quiet intelligence of the universe moving through you. There are moments when this journey feels lonely, because not everyone can perceive what you see. Yet even in solitude, there's peace, because you know that you are walking a divine path. The world may not always understand you, but your soul does. You feel guided by an unseen hand, protected by a wisdom that knows when to push and when to rest. Carl Jung believed that those who look outside dream, but those who look inside awaken. And that's exactly what's happening within you. The more you turn inward, the more you awaken to your own divinity, and the more you realize that your life itself is a form of service, not through grand gestures, but through presence, integrity, and authenticity. Your higher calling isn't a destination, but a state of being. It's about letting your life become a reflection of your inner truth. You start to see your existence as part of something cosmic, a living thread in the vast tapestry of consciousness. Every act of kindness, every moment of awareness, every decision made from love contributes to the awakening of the collective soul. This is the essence of spirituality and the meaning of spiritual growth. To live as an embodiment of consciousness, to bring heaven into the human experience, and to remember that your very presence is an offering to the evolution of life itself. So, as you reflect on these 8 signs, remember, being rare is not a curse, it's a calling. The depth of your empathy, your insight, and your quiet strength are gifts that the world deeply needs. Cherish your uniqueness and keep walking your authentic path with courage and grace. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos, filled with timeless insights from Carl Jung and beyond. Carl Jung explains why they turn on you, even when you save them. People don't really see you. They see their reflection in you. Carl Jung once said this, reminding us that the human mind is a hall of mirrors, where love and hate often spring from the same source, the unacknowledged self. In today's episode on Spiritual Wisdom, we're diving into why some people turn against you, even when you've done nothing but try to help them. Have you ever felt the pain of being hated by someone you've saved, or experienced rejection from the very soul you once carried through their darkness? Comment below and share your thoughts. Your story may help someone understand their own. Let's begin this journey together into the hidden layers of the psyche and uncover what Carl Jung meant when he revealed the painful truth behind human projection and the empath's paradox. 1. The empath as a mirror of the shadow. When an empath steps into someone's life to help, they do far more than offer comfort. They hold up a mirror to the hidden chambers of the human soul. Their gentle presence, their quiet strength, and their spiritual sensitivity begin to uncover what others have buried deep beneath layers of denial. Old wounds, shame, and repressed emotions. What was once concealed in the shadows suddenly becomes illuminated. And because not everyone is ready to confront what lies within, the empath's light is often mistaken for an attack. As Carl Jung taught, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Yet most people do not want to understand. They want to remain asleep. To them, the empath's mirror feels like exposure. Their compassion feels like control, and their authenticity feels like judgment. In the realm of spirituality and awakening, the empath becomes an unconscious catalyst for transformation. They do not need to say much. Their very energy speaks a language of truth. But truth is rarely comfortable. When an empath reflects the parts of others they have long avoided, it disrupts the false peace that the ego depends on. This is what Jung described as shadow projection, the instinct to externalize what we refuse to face within. Those who are still ruled by their unhealed shadows will often project their pain outward, blaming the empath, resenting them, or even turning on them completely. They are not truly angry at the empath. They are angry at the truth. The empath merely reveals what was always there, hidden behind masks of pride and defense. For the empath, this becomes a painful but sacred lesson in spiritual growth. They realize that awakening others is not always met with gratitude, but often with resistance. Many people will reject the very energy that could set them free, because awakening feels like death to the ego. It shatters illusions, breaks old identities, and forces a soul to see beyond its comfort zone. Thus, the empath's gift becomes both a blessing and a burden. They ignite transformation, but are blamed for the fire. As they evolve, empaths begin to see that their purpose is not to heal everyone, but to remain centered, grounded, and true to their light. Spiritual wisdom teaches that real compassion includes boundaries, and that sometimes walking away is the highest form of love. Through this painful initiation, the empath learns that rejection is not failure. It is confirmation of their power. The light that awakens others will always provoke the darkness that hides within them. People may call the empath distant or cold, but in reality, the empath has simply learned to stand in truth without apologizing for it. They no longer seek approval or chase after understanding, because they recognize that every reaction, whether love or hate, is merely a reflection of another's spiritual state. In this awareness, the empath becomes untouchable, a living embodiment of inner peace. They learn that their role in this world is not to convince others to see the light, but to be the light, knowing that those ready for awakening will find their reflection and rise. 2. Projection and unconscious hostility. The hatred that people direct toward the empath is never truly personal. It is projection, a mirror of their own unhealed wounds and repressed pain. Carl Jung called projection one of the most powerful and dangerous forces in the psyche, because it allows a person to disown the parts of themselves they cannot face. When an empath appears, they unintentionally become the canvas upon which others paint their denied emotions. Their kindness and calm presence act like light entering a dark room, exposing the hidden corners of shame, fear, envy, and resentment. The person who once sought comfort from the empath suddenly feels naked, vulnerable, and unsettled. And instead of embracing the chance for healing, they lash out at the one who illuminated their inner turmoil. What they hate is not the empath. It is what the empath's energy awakens within them. When you carry a heart rooted in love, your vibration naturally brings the unconscious to the surface. Your empathy reflects back what others are trying to suppress. When you listen deeply, they feel their own inability to listen. When you forgive, they are reminded of the weight of their own grudges. When you love purely, they are forced to confront the emptiness of their own affection. The ego, unable to tolerate such confrontation, seeks escape by turning you into the problem. This is why people may attack the very one who tried to save them. Their hostility is not a judgment of your worth, but a desperate attempt to protect their identity from collapse. In truth, your presence has disturbed the fragile balance between their conscious persona and their unconscious shadow. Spirituality teaches that every human being is both light and darkness, and spiritual growth begins only when one stops running from that duality. The empath's existence becomes a living test for others, a call to face their hidden parts. But most people are not yet ready for that confrontation. To meet an empath is to meet a mirror that reflects everything unresolved within. And this reflection is often too painful to endure. So they reject you, not because you have done wrong, but because they cannot yet see what you reveal without feeling shame. In the silence of their withdrawal, or the sharpness of their words, they are screaming from a place of fear. Fear of change, fear of awareness, fear of awakening. When you understand this truth, you no longer take their behavior personally. You begin to see that your light serves as a catalyst, not a curse. You are not meant to be everyone's safe place. You are meant to be their moment of awakening. Sometimes your presence will heal them. Other times, it will expose them. Both are divine functions. Their anger is a symptom of transformation beginning, not evil unfolding. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." As an empath, you are the gentle force that brings that unconscious into the light. The cost is a misunderstanding, but the reward is the truth. Hold your energy with compassion, not defense. Let others project, but don't absorb. You are not here to fix their pain. You are here to awaken their awareness. And even when they turn on you, know that your presence has already planted a seed of light that will one day bloom in their soul. Comment below. I see through the projection. If you're ready to recognize how unconscious hostility often reveals more about others than it does about you. Your awareness is your protection. Let's grow together in this journey of spiritual wisdom. 3. The archetype of the wounded healer. Like Christ and the ancient shamans who carried both the light and the wound, the empath lives out what Carl Jung called the archetype of the wounded healer, a soul that heals others through the very pain it has endured. Such a person becomes both a mirror and a medicine, shining light into the unconscious darkness of others. Yet light, while it reveals truth, also unsettles illusion. When you expose what has long been hidden, you awaken resistance. And that resistance can turn into hostility, even from those you've only ever tried to help. Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That is the path of the empath, the painful beauty of being both the revealer and the rejected. Every act of genuine healing disturbs the psyche's fragile balance. When you touch someone's wounds, you awaken their defenses. The ego, which thrives on control and illusion, feels threatened by exposure. It cannot easily distinguish between the healer and the harm, so it fights back to restore its comfort. That is why the ones you love most may suddenly see you as the cause of their pain. You didn't hurt them. You merely held up the mirror they refused to look into. Their gratitude fades because the unconscious prefers blindness over awakening. And in that blindness, they confuse your truth for betrayal. Spiritual wisdom reminds us that when you offer healing, you are also inviting someone into transformation, and transformation is rarely kind to the ego. Your compassion doesn't just soothe, it challenges. Your peace doesn't just comfort, it confronts. And that confrontation forces people to meet the parts of themselves they've long buried. When your light enters their shadow, it becomes unbearable to those who have not yet learned to love their own darkness. Their anger, their withdrawal, their resentment are all signs of resistance, not rejection of your worth. To awaken another is to step into sacred risk, to love deeply enough that you become the target of their pain when truth becomes too heavy to bear. As Jung taught, the healer's own wound is what grants the power to heal others, but it is also what makes them vulnerable to rejection. You cannot guide another through the dark without carrying your own scars. Yet it is precisely that shared suffering that allows you to reach into another's soul with empathy rather than superiority. The empath's strength lies not in saving others, but in understanding them. You are not meant to be adored. You are meant to awaken. The pain of being misunderstood, even hated, is the cross every true healer must bear. So when people turn on you after you've given them your light, remember it is not because you failed, but because they are not yet ready to see. Your illumination has forced their unconscious to tremble, and trembling is the beginning of transformation. Their hostility is the shadow's last defense before surrender. Continue to shine without resentment, for light that endures through rejection becomes divine. As spiritual wisdom reminds us, the empath's role is not to be accepted, but to awaken. And sometimes awakening begins with the very pain of being turned against by those you came to heal. 4. The scapegoat and the alchemical fire. Empaths often find themselves carrying the collective pain of others, unknowingly becoming the scapegoat for emotions people cannot face within themselves. This role is not chosen. It is assigned by those who project their shadows onto you. When you stand in light, you reveal darkness. When you radiate calm, you awaken chaos in those still ruled by their wounds. Carl Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." This truth lives inside every empathic soul. The moment your presence mirrors another person's suppressed pain, their unconscious interprets it as a threat. And so, instead of gratitude for your compassion, you are met with resistance, even hatred, a reaction born from the discomfort of self-confrontation. What they see in you is not who you are. It is what they refuse to acknowledge in themselves. But this hatred is not meaningless. It is the alchemical fire that begins the transformation. Every attack, every misunderstanding, every false accusation becomes a spark that burns away illusion. Through this fire, your soul begins its purification. You start realizing that the pain you feel is not punishment, but a process, a sacred initiation that separates illusion from truth. This is the paradox of the empath's journey. In carrying the burdens of others, you are actually being refined into strength. Just as raw metal must be melted before it can become gold, your empathy must pass through the flames of misunderstanding to reveal spiritual mastery. You begin to see that not every broken soul is ready to be healed, and not every wounded heart wants the truth. Some would rather blame the mirror than face the reflection. The scapegoat archetype is ancient, the one who carries what the tribe cannot bear. Yet spiritually, the scapegoat is also the alchemist, transforming collective darkness into light through endurance and awareness. In this fire, you stop identifying with the suffering of others and begin to understand the laws of energy. You learn that compassion without boundaries becomes self-destruction, and love without wisdom becomes servitude. Spiritual awakening teaches you to protect your energy not out of fear, but out of reverence for your own soul's journey. You begin to discern the difference between saving and enabling, between empathy and attachment, between compassion and codependency. As you rise through this process, your perception shifts. You no longer see hostility as personal, but as a sign of the other's internal war. Their rejection becomes your redirection, a lesson that pushes you deeper into inner stillness. You realize that the universe is not punishing you through these experiences, but sculpting you into someone who can hold light without being consumed by darkness. Carl Jung believed that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And through your trials, you understand this truth intimately. The very people who tried to break you are the catalysts of your rebirth. Their projections, once heavy chains, now become the very fire that forges your spiritual immunity. Through this alchemical transformation, the empath evolves from the rescuer into the awakened observer, someone who no longer seeks to fix others, but to embody balance. The hatred that once burned you becomes fuel for self-realization, and the pain that once silenced you becomes your teacher. You rise not above others, but beyond the need to be understood by them. And in this liberation, you discover the quiet power of spiritual wisdom, that even rejection can serve your awakening, that even the fire meant to destroy you can illuminate your path toward truth, peace, and divine sovereignty. Leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom to stay connected with more deep insights like this. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next revelation on your journey of awakening. And comment below. I rise through the fire of transformation. If you're ready to turn your pain into power. 5. The empath's own shadow and wound. Empaths are often driven by a quiet and invisible longing, a need to heal others that is born not merely from compassion, but from the scars of their own past. Deep inside, there lies an unhealed wound, a childhood memory of rejection, neglect, or feeling unworthy of love. This pain silently shapes their adult behavior, compelling them to seek love through service, to feel valuable only when they are saving someone else. So they give endlessly, believing that their light can mend the darkness in others. Yet when that light is met with hatred or betrayal, it cuts twice as deep. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That is the empath's dilemma, unknowingly repeating the same old wound, searching for healing in the reflection of another's eyes, hoping that if they give enough, they'll finally be seen. accepted, and loved. But spiritual growth begins when the empath stops asking, "Why do they hate me?" and starts understanding what that pain is revealing. The rejection they experience from those they help is not random cruelty. It's a mirror of their own suppressed pain. By bringing light to another person's darkness, the empath forces them to confront the parts of themselves they've denied the shadow, as Jung called it, and that confrontation often feels unbearable. The other person projects their discomfort, anger, or shame onto the empath, turning against the very hand that tried to heal them. What feels like betrayal is, in truth, a sacred reflection of the human psyche's resistance to awakening. In this moment, spirituality demands a new kind of strength, the courage to look inward instead of outward, to see that the rejection was never a punishment, but an invitation to awareness. When the empath realizes this, their healing truly begins. They start to see that love does not require pain as proof, and that their purpose is not to fix others, but to become whole themselves. They understand that every act of giving, every wound reopened, was the universe's way of guiding them back to self-recognition. Spirituality teaches them that true compassion cannot flow from emptiness. It must rise from fullness. So they begin to set boundaries, to value their energy, to say no without guilt, and to give without losing themselves. They no longer seek validation through others' healing. Instead, they honor their own wholeness. This shift transforms their empathy from a wound into a superpower, allowing them to love from a place of strength rather than need. In this sacred turning point, the empath learns that spiritual awakening is not about being endlessly selfless. It is about being consciously balanced. It is the art of shining without burning out, of giving without being drained, of helping without absorbing the world's sorrow. The hatred they once took personally becomes a symbol of transformation, teaching them to embrace their shadow, their limits, and their light all at once. Through this awareness, they are reborn not as victims of rejection, but as masters of energy, fully aware that the act of saving others was always meant to lead them back to saving themselves. 6. Boundaries and energetic autonomy. Without firm boundaries, your energy begins to wander, seeping into the emotional field of others until you unknowingly trespass into their psychic space. What you intend as care or healing can easily feel like intrusion to the unconscious mind of another. This is why Carl Jung taught that what remains unconscious in us governs our lives as fate. The empath, guided by love, yet unaware of their energetic reach, often gives so completely that they dissolve the natural line between two souls. When you carry someone's pain without their consent, you awaken their defense mechanisms. Your compassion becomes a mirror they are not ready to face. True healing, as spiritual wisdom reminds us, is not about merging. It's about honoring the sacred space between two beings. To love without absorbing, to help without rescuing, to care without controlling, that is the art of energetic autonomy. When you offer empathy without awareness, you unknowingly activate the other person's shadow. They sense your energy entering their wounds, and instinctively, they resist it. What you perceive as rejection is often self-protection. They are not rejecting you. They are rejecting the reflection of their own pain that your light exposes. Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." This means that the more you understand your inner landscape, the less you project and absorb. Boundaries are not barriers. They are energetic agreements that protect the flow of love from turning into dependency or resentment. Without them, kindness becomes an unconscious invasion, and even the purest intentions can provoke hostility in those still trapped in denial. You must remember that compassion without consciousness leads to exhaustion. There is a difference between empathy and enmeshment. When you lose yourself in another's suffering, you are no longer helping, you are drowning together. The path of spiritual wisdom asks you to stand at the edge of another storm without letting it pull you in. To hold light for someone does not mean you must enter their darkness. It means you remain luminous enough for them to find their own way. Healing flows naturally when love meets boundaries because it respects free will and mirrors inner strength instead of weakness. The empath's greatest lesson is to transform their gift into discernment. You can love someone deeply and still walk away when their energy demands your self-betrayal. You can care without carrying, listen without losing yourself, and support without surrendering your center. This is what it means to practice spiritual maturity, to know where your soul ends and another's begins. As Jung understood, the work of the soul is to become conscious, not to control. When you protect your energy, you are not being selfish. You are preserving the clarity that allows you to love wisely. And in that wisdom, you learn the quiet truth. Boundaries are love's highest expression, for they allow both souls to grow freely, without fear, without fusion, and without the illusion that saving another is the same as awakening them. 7. Hatred as catalyst for individuation. The hatred that empaths face often becomes the very flame that awakens their spirituality and begins their true spiritual awakening. What seems like rejection is actually initiation. When people turn on you, even after you've helped them, it's not always about what you did. It's about what your presence revealed. As Carl Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The hatred directed toward the empath is rarely personal. It is the unconscious resistance of others who cannot face the parts of themselves your light exposes. When your compassion shines too brightly, it illuminates their shadows, and instead of gratitude, you receive resentment. But that resentment becomes the mirror through which you begin to see the hidden lessons your soul came to learn. In this fire of misunderstanding, the ego's need for approval starts to burn away. You begin to notice how much of your kindness was tied to wanting to be seen as good, as valuable, as necessary. But hatred has a way of stripping away illusions. It forces you to stop seeking love where it cannot be given, and to discover the quiet power of inner wholeness. The more you are rejected, the more you are called inward, to find that the only validation that matters is the one that arises from your own awareness. This is where individuation begins the sacred process of separating who you truly are from who the world told you to be. It is not a comfortable journey, but it is the only one that leads to freedom. As hatred continues to test you, you begin to see its hidden mercy. It purifies your motives and exposes attachments you didn't know you had. You start giving not to be liked, but because it is your nature to love. You start helping not to be recognized, but because you understand that real compassion asks for no reward. This shift marks a turning point in your spiritual awakening. You realize that you can still care deeply while remaining detached, still love while maintaining your boundaries. Hatred no longer wounds you. It teaches you. It becomes the alchemical fire that turns pain into wisdom, fragility into strength, and sensitivity into spiritual clarity. In this crucible, you are transformed. The empath, who once sought to save everyone, now learns to save their own energy. You stop trying to be a healer for those who do not wish to heal. You stop trying to be understood by those who cannot yet see. The hatred that once felt unbearable becomes a quiet teacher, reminding you that not every rejection is a curse. Some are divine redirections meant to push you closer to your authentic self. As Jung taught, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Through every wound, every act of betrayal, every moment of scorn, you are being shaped into something far stronger than approval can offer. A soul that stands whole within itself. And when you reach this place, you no longer react, you respond. You no longer seek acceptance, you embody peace. The hatred that once sought to destroy you has become the sacred fire that forged your awakening. 8. Transcending duality, love and hate as one path. The empath's true spiritual growth begins when they transcend the illusion that love and hate are opposites, realizing instead that both are sacred forces shaping the evolution of the soul. Every encounter, whether filled with warmth or rejection, becomes a mirror reflecting hidden aspects of your being. You see, people's admiration often mirrors your light, while their hostility exposes the parts of you that still long for validation. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." This is the essence of your journey. You are transformed through every emotional reaction directed at you. The goal is not to be loved by all, but to stay rooted in truth, even when others project their shadow onto you. When you no longer define yourself by how people perceive you, you begin to walk the path of liberation, where pain becomes your teacher and love becomes your natural state of being. When you give freely, heal deeply, and are met with rejection or resentment, understand that it is not about you. It is about what your presence awakens in them. Your light exposes the darkness they have not yet faced, and instead of gratitude, they often respond with resistance. The spiritually awakened empath learns not to take this personally, because the moment you stop internalizing their projections, you step into mastery. You see that every act of misunderstanding, every harsh word, and every betrayal is part of a divine design, pushing you to strengthen your inner foundation. Love and hate are two languages spoken by the same universe to reveal how far you have come in your journey of awakening. When you can stand in the middle of both, unshaken, you embody true spiritual power, the kind that cannot be threatened, manipulated, or broken. In spirituality, the highest form of strength is not control, but surrender, the ability to stay open even when wounded, to forgive even when not understood. When you forgive, you break the karmic cycle of pain that binds souls to suffering. When you give without expectation, you demonstrate that your love is no longer conditional. It flows from an inner abundance, not a need to be needed. This is what Carl Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, where you integrate both shadow and light instead of rejecting one in favor of the other. Hatred and love are not enemies. They are partners in the alchemical fire that purifies your soul. Those who love you and those who despise you are both initiators of your transformation. They challenge your ego, refine your perception, and remind you that your peace must never depend on external approval. When you reach this understanding, even rejection becomes sacred. You stop asking, "Why did they turn on me?" and begin to see that their reaction is a mirror of their inner struggle, not a measure of your worth. The empath's greatest initiation is to endure emotional chaos without closing the heart to keep radiating light in the face of darkness, not because the world deserves it, but because your soul is made of it. In the end, transcending duality means embracing the paradox that love and hate are two sides of the same sacred coin. Both lead you toward the self, the divine center that remains untouched by external storms. Every act of love expands your consciousness. Every act of hatred tests it. When you learn to hold both without losing balance, you awaken to the truth that nothing outside you can define you. That is when the soul stops reacting and begins creating. When you no longer seek peace, you become it. When someone turns on you after you've helped them, remember, this is not a reflection of your worth, but a revelation of their shadow. As Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Let this truth free you from resentment and guide you toward compassion without attachment. Healing doesn't always mean being understood. It means staying true to your light, even when others can't see it. How do you protect your peace while continuing to help others? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more insights that awaken your inner strength and clarity.